Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're analyzing a case study in, well, pure conviction. We're looking at the super ambitious bull thesis for Ethereum, or ETH, and we're digging into sources that are projecting gains that could, reach up to 2,000%.
Which is just a staggering figure.
It is. It's a number that just demands you take a closer look at what's actually underneath it.
Right, and that's exactly our mission. We've been dissecting the research from Tom Lee of Fundstrat. He's one of the market's, most recognizable strategists.
The big name.
A very big name. And look, we're not here to endorse a price target or anything like that. We're here to help you understand the core argument, the technical shifts, the economic utility, and the specific ratios Lee is using to justify these huge projections.
And I think we have to start with the source himself, right?
Okay.
Tom Lee has this label in the market. He's the perma bull.
Always optimistic.
Always. And, historically, that might make you a little skeptical. But his recent track record, that kind of changes the whole conversation.
It absolutely does. The sources all point out that in both 2023 and 2024, Lee was one of the few big names who consistently, he nailed these key bullish calls.
Yeah, on the broader market and in crypto.
Exactly. All while his competitors were, being cautious or outright bearish. So when someone with that kind of recent precision makes such a dramatic long-term call on an asset like Ethereum, you just have to ask why.
Okay, so let's unpack his commitment then, because it's more than just a research report, isn't it? He's actually invested strategically in the ecosystem itself.
Oh, exactly. His commitment isn't just philosophical. He became the board chairman of a company called Bitmine Immersion Technologies.
Okay.
And this company openly adopts what they call an Ethereum treasury strategy. So that means they're using their corporate capital specifically to buy and hold the ETH token for the long term.
So he's putting his capital where his conviction is.
100%.
Yeah.
And it suggests he's seeing some kind of fundamental multi-year shift that's happening right now.
All right, so if the whole strategy is to basically stockpile Ethereum, we need to get into what makes ETH structurally better than Bitcoin, in his view. Because they're both dominant, but they're playing very different games now.
They're completely different beasts at this point. Bitcoin is defined by its proof-of-work mechanism, POW.
Right.
But Ethereum, a few years back, made that huge dramatic shift over to proof-of-stake, POS. And that move right there is the foundation for this entire bull thesis.
We've talked about proof of stake before, usually in the context of energy efficiency, which is, that's obviously a huge deal.
It is.
But what does it really mean for the investor? Why does this technical switch potentially unlock so much value?
That's where you have to go deeper than just the energy conversation. Proof of stake involves investors staking or, locking up their existing coins to validate transactions and secure the network.
So they're putting their own capital on the line.
Exactly. They're putting their capital at risk to guarantee the integrity of the whole system, and they get rewarded for doing that.
Which strengthens the network, right?
Yes.
Because everyone's incentivized to play by the rules.
Precisely. But here is the critical investment insight that Lee is laser focused on. It's the effect on the tokenomics.
On the supply and demand.
Right. When coins are staked, they are physically removed from the circulating supply. And on top of that, the POS mechanism drastically cut the issuance rate of new Ethereum.
So less new ETH is being created.
Way less. In fact, after the switch, under certain network conditions, Ethereum can actually become a deflationary asset.
Meaning more ETH is being destroyed through fees than is being created.
Exactly. More is being burned than is being minted.
Wow. That is a powerful concept. So when your supply is actively shrinking, any increase in demand gets disproportionate leverage.
It's a supply shock mechanism.
Right. It shifts Ethereum from just being a currency to being more like a commodity that can generate yield while its supply might actually be going down.
Yes, a supply shock that Bitcoin just doesn't have in the same way. Now, you combine that technical foundation with Ethereum's, its core differentiator, smart contracts.
The programmable money layer.
That's it. Smart contract functionality turns Ethereum from just a ledger into a global computing platform. This is what allows developers to build entire decentralized finance or DeFi ecosystems directly on the network.
So if proof of stake makes it scarce,
smart contracts give it utility, boundless utility.
Okay, so let's ground this a bit. What are the concrete real-world examples that show this utility instead of it just being abstract code?
Well, the sources point to two immediate critical functions. First is asset tokenization.
Taking things like real estate or stocks and putting them on the blockchain.
Yep. And second, and this is huge, is the issuance of stablecoins. Stablecoins are pegged to currencies like the US dollar, and they are absolutely essential for moving value around the crypto world and increasingly across borders without needing banks.
And this is where Lee connects all the dots, right? From the tech to his massive price target. He's looking at all this and concluding that Ethereum isn't just another crypto. He sees it becoming the foundation of worldwide financial settlement.
That is a massive claim.
A claim of, like, systemic importance.
It is, and he backs it up with current market dominance. If you just look at the evidence, the majority of stablecoins, which account for billions in daily volume, are already issued on Ethereum. Plus, it hosts the vast majority of all DeFi applications. It has the lion's share of the value locked in that space. This is critical mass. It's the infrastructure the new financial world is already using.
Okay, so this brings us to the key metric that's driving his entire projection. It's the relationship between Ethereum and Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ratio.
Yes. Lee believes that all this utility we just talked about means Ethereum is naturally going to start closing that huge valuation gap between it and Bitcoin.
Because, I mean, let's be honest, Bitcoin has had a spectacular run, especially with the ETFs and institutional money flowing in.
Correct. Bitcoin has benefited enormously from that digital gold narrative. People see it as an inflation hedge, a store of value, sort of like physical gold. And that story has let it really break away from Ethereum in terms of the price ratio for the last few years.
And Lee's whole argument is that this is just a temporary thing, an anomaly.
That's the argument, that this divergence is temporary and historically abnormal. He thinks Ethereum will return to its historical range.
So let's get into the numbers. What is that historical range that he thinks Ethereum has to get back to?
Okay, so for a baseline, you have to go back to 2017. At its peak, Ethereum's price ratio against Bitcoin was about 0.12.
Okay.
Since then, it's trended a lot lower, but the historical average over the last 8 years or so has settled around 0.05.
And just for context, our sources give us some, dated reference points. At the time of this analysis, ETH was trading around $3,000 with a market cap of about $360 billion. It just helps frame the scale of the move we're talking about.
Exactly. And Lee lays out two scenarios. They're based on where Bitcoin might go and how Ethereum has performed against it in the past. The first scenario is basically just a return to normal.
And what does normal look like in dollar terms?
If Ethereum just gets back to its 8-year average ratio of 0.05 against Bitcoin, the price target he projects is $12,000.
$12,000. I mean, that's a massive move right there. A 300 or 400% jump from that $3,000 range.
It's huge, but that's not even the big one.
Right. 12,000 is compelling, but the target that got all the headlines, the one that gets you to that 2,000% gain, that requires a break from history, doesn't it? What justifies that next level leap?
That is the breakout scenario. Lee believes that Ethereum's utility, the deflationary tokenomics, its dominance in DeFi, all of it will lead it to establish a new, much stronger relationship with Bitcoin.
Okay, so what's the new ratio he's projecting?
He thinks it could reach a ratio of 0.25 relative to Bitcoin.
Wow. 0.25. That's more than double its all-time high ratio.
More than double. And what dollar value does that translate to?
I'm almost afraid to ask.
It translates to an astonishing price target of $62,000.
$62,000.
That's the basis for that 2,000% surge potential. It's a fundamental argument that says, look, while Bitcoin is digital gold, Ethereum is digital oil, the essential fuel for the global financial machine, and that its utility value will eventually surpass Bitcoin's scarcity value.
That is a staggering projection. But anytime we talk about 20x gains in such a volatile asset class, we have to, pivot to the critical side. Is there a scenario where a 0.25 ratio is just wildly optimistic?
Absolutely. And we have to shift our tone here and inject some essential sobriety. The analysis on utility is compelling for sure, but the sources are unanimous in cautioning investors. Don't treat any specific crypto price prediction as, gospel.
Why is it so much harder to value crypto than, say, a tech stock?
Well, the main reason is what's often called the valuation paradox. Cryptocurrencies are, 1, too volatile, and 2, you can't value them with traditional methods.
Like PE ratios or discounted cash flows?
Right, because they don't generate earnings or free cash flow. You're not valuing a company, you're trying to value a network, a protocol. And the sources all stress this is still a very young sector. We're all still learning a lot about it.
So without those traditional metrics, investors have to rely almost entirely on narrative and momentum and adoption.
Which is why the volatility is just so extreme. And on top of that, there are huge non-technical risks. Regulatory uncertainty is enormous.
A huge one.
Yeah. Will governments treat Ethereum as a security or a commodity? The answer to that could drastically change its trajectory overnight.
That's a massive unknown. Okay, so beyond regulation, what about competition? I mean, Ethereum isn't a monopoly. Do other networks out there pose a real threat to this bull thesis?
They do, and this is a critical weakness Lee's thesis has to overcome. The market is, frankly, saturated with so-called Ethereum killers.
Solana, Avalanche, Cardano, networks like that.
Exactly. Networks that often boast higher transactions per second or lower fees, they're all chasing the exact same market for decentralized apps.
So how does Ethereum possibly maintain its dominance against rivals that are, faster and maybe cheaper?
It all comes back to the network effect. While a new network might be technically superior on paper, Ethereum has already achieved what the sources call critical mass.
It's just too big to fail, in a sense.
It's more that it has the biggest developer community, the most value locked up, and the deepest real-world integration through stablecoins. It has that first-mover advantage in utility.
So even if a competitor's faster, the cost and the risk of moving all that existing DeFi infrastructure and all those assets off of Ethereum is just too high right now. It creates a kind of moat.
That's the argument, yeah. The consensus takeaway from all these sources is that the best course for you as a long-term investor is to filter out the daily noise and just find coins that trade on networks with undeniable real-world utility.
And Ethereum clearly fits that mold because the smart contracts, the DeFi ecosystem, the whole stablecoin foundation.
Yes, the utility is proven. So the sources conclude that investors can be comfortable buying and holding Ethereum long-term. Not because of a specific price target, but because its core utility and its network effect make it a foundational piece of technology for the next decade of finance.
Utility and achievement. That's the takeaway. We've covered Tom Lee's track record, that critical switch to proof of stake and its deflationary power, the dominance in stablecoins, and those massive price targets tied to the Bitcoin ratio.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. The balancing act for you is to focus on that network utility, not the short-term price swings.
Focus on the foundation.
Absolutely. So let's leave you with one final provocative thought that builds on this whole vision of Ethereum as the global financial foundation. We've established that most stablecoins, these global dollar-pegged transfers, are already being settled on Ethereum.
So if Ethereum truly does establish itself as the mandatory foundational settlement layer for the world, we have to ask, which existing massive non-speculative financial institution, think a huge payment processor or a major corporate treasury or even a central bank, which one will be the first to entirely migrate its primary high-volume operations onto Ethereum's smart contract platform? Not just test it out, but fully commit. Think about the implications of a multi-trillion-dollar entity running its core business on a deflationary global public ledger. That is the disruption that's being priced into that $62,000 prediction. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.